New York's homelessness crisis has hit record highs. Can the city find a way out? In August 2024, New York's homelessness crisis hit an alarming peak, with estimates showing over 350,000 residents without stable housing. This is the highest level since the Great Depression, and the situation is only getting worse. Each night, about 132,000 people find some shelter in city facilities, but thousands more are left sleeping in parks, on subways, or even on friends' couches. The total homeless population in New York has surged by a massive 175% over the last 20 years. There was a temporary dip of about 25% during the pandemic, thanks to emergency rent aid and eviction bans. But with those protections now expired, a fresh wave of displacement has hit the city. Families are some of the hardest hit by this crisis. About 71% of shelter residents are homeless families, including 46,000 children. It's a shocking contrast to New York's image as a global financial hub, exposing a widening wealth gap that leaves too many behind. So let's dive into the 10 New York cities struggling the most with homelessness. And we'll start with one you might not expect.
Homeless men in their community.
Syracuse may have the smallest homeless population among New York's major cities, with about 25 to 30 people sleeping on the streets or in shelters on any given night. These numbers might seem low, but homelessness here is still a significant issue, driven by factors like a struggling local economy and a severe lack of affordable housing. Surprisingly, a large portion of the homeless population in Syracuse is made up of war veterans. The local government has tried several initiatives to address the problem, including a housing-first approach that provides housing to the homeless without preconditions. However, limited funding and resources pose big challenges. While Syracuse's programs may be smaller in scale than those in larger cities, the local community is deeply dedicated to supporting its most vulnerable residents. Staten Island might be the smallest borough in New York City, but with 216 people experiencing homelessness, it's facing a very real crisis. Unlike the other boroughs, Staten Island's lower population density means the homeless population is less visible, but their needs are no less pressing. In recent months, Staten Island opened 3 long-anticipated shelters on Van Duzer St., Highland Boulevard, and Tompkins Ave. The shelter on Van Duzer St. alone is set to house 200 families, roughly 500 people, while the Highland Boulevard and Tompkins Ave shelters provide space for 50 women and 100 others. Additionally, organizations like People's Path, a local nonprofit, are stepping up to offer direct support to the homeless community. Despite being a smaller borough, Staten Island's commitment to providing resources is helping to create a much-needed lifeline for its vulnerable residents. Moving on to number 8, Albany. Albany, the capital of New York, might be known for its historic charm, iconic Capitol building, and reputation as a hub of government and education. But behind that image of prosperity, Albany is struggling with a serious homelessness crisis. With around 750 people currently unhoused, the city is battling high living costs and a shortage of affordable housing, which have exposed a sharp divide between Albany's economic development and its social challenges. To tackle the issue, the Albany government launched Albany Project Hope, a program aimed at offering quick, effective solutions to homelessness. But with budget constraints often slowing down progress, Albany's homeless population remains notably high, especially compared to cities like Syracuse. For a place known for innovation and progress, Albany's homelessness crisis highlights the deep-rooted issues that the city still needs to address. Rochester is often celebrated as a city of industrial innovation and academic excellence, home to major institutions like Kodak and the University of Rochester. But ironically, Rochester is also grappling with a significant homelessness crisis, with an estimated 803 homeless individuals. In recent years, the city's homeless encampments have raised safety concerns, with incidents like fires threatening nearby communities. Efforts to house the homeless have been made, but many shelter projects have faced setbacks due to funding and management issues. One recent example is the dismantling of Peace Village, a homeless encampment that was removed without a proper plan for relocation. leaving many of its residents back on the streets. Despite being a city known for innovation, Rochester's struggle to find lasting solutions for its homeless population reveals just how difficult this crisis has become. Brooklyn, known for landmarks like the Brooklyn Bridge, Prospect Park, and its vibrant, diverse neighborhoods, is facing a homelessness challenge with around 1,157 people currently without stable housing. Rising housing costs are displacing more and more low-income residents, and a significant portion of Brooklyn's homeless population are actually low-wage workers who simply can't keep up with the city's steep living expenses. While local officials have pushed for more affordable housing, real estate pressures make it tough to turn those goals into reality. Social tensions are also escalating in Brooklyn, particularly around the placement of shelters. For instance, residents in Bensonhurst have raised concerns over new shelter locations, voicing fears about the impact on their communities. In Sunset Park, small business owners have reported issues like discarded syringes and makeshift tents appearing in the streets. These challenges highlight the stark divide between Brooklyn's booming economy and the homelessness crisis affecting its residents. Queens, with a homeless population of about 1,219, is also feeling the weight of an affordable housing crisis. Known for its rich immigrant communities and economic diversity, Queens is home to many low-income workers who are being priced out of their homes. Shockingly, a large number of those experiencing homelessness here are employed, but the rising rent costs make it nearly impossible for them to maintain stable housing. While the borough has transitional housing programs and rent assistance initiatives in place, the results have been mixed at best. Most of the shelters are clustered in Community Boards 1 and 12, which has sparked frustration among locals. There's ongoing concern about the lack of community input in decisions about shelter locations, such as the recent plan to convert the Wyndham Garden Hotel in Rego Park into a shelter. With many homeless individuals resorting to sleeping in places like Jamaica Station, the crisis is becoming more visible and urgent, especially as daily commuters are directly affected by it. Buffalo, New York's second-largest city, might be known for its industrial heritage and proximity to Niagara Falls, but it's also struggling with a significant homelessness crisis, with around 1,432 people without a home. Buffalo's economic decline, triggered by factory closures, rising unemployment, and a lack of affordable housing, has intensified the issue. The city's harsh winters make the problem even more severe, as the number of people experiencing homelessness rises sharply when temperatures drop. The city has made repeated efforts to dismantle homeless encampments in the downtown area, yet those without housing often return, showing a clear lack of adequate alternatives. This cycle of displacement without real solutions underscores the ongoing struggle Buffalo faces in finding effective ways to address homelessness. The Bronx, famously known as the birthplace of hip-hop and for its vibrant street art, also has the highest poverty rate in New York City. Around 1,458 people are living without homes here, and this stark reality drives the borough's growing homelessness crisis. Generational poverty plays a big part. Many of today's homeless individuals grew up in unstable housing situations themselves, making the issue deeply complex. While the Bronx has more shelters than any other borough in NYC, these facilities are often at full capacity and struggle to meet the demand for services. Homeless encampments frequently appear in parks and public spaces, creating tension with local businesses and residents. Government efforts to move people into shelters have had some impact, but the problem continues to escalate, leaving the Bronx in need of more long-term solutions. Manhattan, the bustling heart of New York City, with its famous skyscrapers, Times Square, and the global financial district, is also home to a large, highly visible homeless population. With over 4,000 homeless individuals despite a population of 1.6 million, Manhattan starkly highlights the social inequality running through the city. Daily sweeps to clear homeless encampments from subway stations, parks, and other public spaces may make the issue temporarily less visible, but they don't address the root causes. Since 2020, some homeless individuals have even turned tunnels near the Hudson River into makeshift shelters. Over a dozen people live in these underground spaces, using old mattresses and blankets for protection. Complaints from residents about trash-strewn sidewalks, foul odors, and safety concerns are common. Although authorities frequently attempt to clean these areas, the homeless community keeps returning, reflecting the cyclical nature of this crisis in Manhattan. Taking the top spot is New York City as a whole, with the largest homeless population in the state. Every night, over 4,140 people sleep on the streets, in subways, or other public places. Despite having the largest homeless support system in the country, New York City's crisis keeps growing, fueled by rising living costs and an ever-widening income gap. The city's ongoing efforts to clear homeless encampments from busy business and tourist areas may bring short-term relief but have little lasting impact, as many people simply return to the streets. Beyond the 150,000 individuals living in city shelters, there's a whole hidden layer of homelessness. Some remain unseen, like the so-called mole people living in underground subway tunnels and hidden utility paths. This underground community could number anywhere from 5,000 to 25,000 individuals, with some living dangerously close to live electrical rails. These underground residents represent an even more marginalized segment of New York's homeless population, showing just how deep and complex this crisis truly is. While programs are in place to transition homeless camps into better housing options, opposition from local residents, particularly in wealthier neighborhoods, has slowed progress. The complexity and sheer scale of homelessness in New York City make it one of the city's most pressing and challenging issues today.